All right, I guess you could say I'm starting to like work on some BitChute exclusives because obviously YouTube's a little lackluster. Um, so I guess I'll do some quotes. Well, I'll start with a quote for this one. Something I said, I posted. Anyway, let me read it. The reason why the entire neoliberal diaspora is so triggered today, it is because they lack a constructive or concrete sense of being. Identity politics is just another form of Gnosticism, plain and simple. Conservatives, more often than not, believe in our Almighty Father in heaven, the truth, the way, the life, and His only Son, Jesus Christ, and the magnificent power of the Holy Spirit. So, I mean, you can contextualize that. Obviously, there's been a lot of different isms that have occurred because of the offshoots of the denominations of Christianity, it mainly being a Protestant kind of reformation over and over again in the United States. And it's very interesting because I have found that through it's definitely like all that ecumenicism kind of folds itself into one big blanket. I mean, blanket umbrella. It kind of happens one under one big umbrella, and especially with Western Christianity, it gets more away from the mysticism and the fullness of the ancient churches, primarily. Well, before the schism, it was Orthodox and Catholic. It was Orthodox and Catholicism as one, or Catholic. It was like Catholic and Orthodox Church combined at one time before 1054 AD. And then after that, obviously, you had the falling out and the separation into the three primary denominations. And then, of course, the Gnosticism came into play with all those different derivatives. I mean, that even happened before and after the schism, and still happening today. We're seeing it take on a new form when it comes to identity politics, because identity politics is nothing more than just that, just another reiteration of some kind of Gnosticism. I mean, almost everything outside of church authority, outside of the church, is Gnosticism, depending on your denomination, of course, and what you would consider to be that authority. I obviously don't want to, speak for anybody in their respective regards or places when it comes to that. And it's one of those things where when that momentum gets going, the voice of the voiceless, the oppressed, the what have you, it's there, but it's not sustainable because they don't have a common goal, and that's why you see on the left is so much more fractured than it is the right. I mean, sure, in the right you can have your dissident rights, your alt-righters, your keks, and all that jazz. But they fall under a very common category, and it's usually in the Christian thread. It's usually a Christian pathology. It's usually a Christian ethos, and not necessarily the same denomination. But there's a commonality spirit. There's a common goal to it. There's a spirit that's integrated. It's. I mean, it's nice. It's definitely, as a Christian myself, I can definitely rely upon that and imprint my own or my beliefs on that mainframe, rather than going completely outside of the box, in which what liberalism pretty much is, as Father Williamson pointed it out. He pointed out many of those presuppositions to what the problems liberalism brings to the church. And he's a Catholic priest. So he definitely argues the fact that liberalism in and of itself is Well, I mean, it's basically self-destructive. It goes against the true teachings of the church. Primarily, he was speaking from a Catholic standpoint, um, and he definitely hits a lot of the same viewpoints that old conservative Christians. I don't know about the new ones. I mean, obviously there is some truth to it, um, but lost its momentum. It lost its vigor. It's vigor for the spirit. It's vigor for Christ. It's vigor in Christianity. I mean, it's just completely flatlined. Um, but I mean, conservatism holds truer to it than the liberalism or the liberalistic side. I mean, there's still both uh, neoliberal paradigms, but one goes towards more Christian in the Christian value system ethos rather than the liberal side of it, which wants to replace something with it. They want to find some kind of state solution. They want to find some kind of, well, I'm oppressed, so I need welfare, or some kind of replacement for that moral structure, for that moral uh for that moral vacuum. I mean, and that's what a lot of the state does in any instance. I mean, you look at a book like 1984. The state is it's a complete nanny state. It's a complete vacuum of where something used to be. There's no transcendent value system. It just is. It's just a constant fear mongering campaign, but they're not really sure what's going on. And then it's a constant war campaign, but they're not really sure what's going on. But then, God forbid if they write something that goes against Big Brother, then oh man, and nothing says the resistance like every major corporation being in your corner. I mean, come on. Just had the other day the whole MAGA crowd show up to the Capitol, and they're doing nothing but demonizing that crowd. Oh, but you can burn down cities, so that's cool too. I mean, come on. You're gonna really call people liberals and oppressed minorities when they're just going around doing that? I mean, you can't have false equivalencies and expect the same thing to happen on both sides. You can't call for peace. You can't call for prosperity. You can't call for a homogeneous relationship if one side is going off the rails and has no value system, and then the other side is kind of disbanded. I mean, we're all over the place, but we have we fall back on, which is primarily Western Christian values. European. Well, I mean, and then you have your various arrays of the three denominations under that. And sure, I mean, there's outliers. There's people who believe in different things, but they see the value system that we have, and they in some ways can adapt and attach themselves that way to it. And believe me, that's great. That's great that they want to do that. But that shows there's a universal message to that. There's a universality to it rather than what's going on to the left. It's just the left is just me. Where we're kind of me. I mean, we definitely value individual rights, but the contextualization and the ethos and the pathology is definitely more based in Christianity. So, I mean, that's just it. Identity politics is just a lost cause. I mean, it's just a road that just pretty much leads to nowhere. You can identify with yourself. You can definitely identify yourself in God. You can definitely help yourself through God. But doing that without it is a vacuum. It's definitely doesn't really lead itself to anywhere. And statistics can prove that. But it also is just a lost endeavor, just relying something completely on the state rather than on a divine authority, if you will. So, once again, that's it. See ya.